morning, everybody, and thank you for joining LISC Connecticut today to learn more about the Financial Opportunity Center Network. I'm Jim Horan, Senior Executive Director of LISC Connecticut. We're thrilled that you're able to join us this morning for this virtual open house on the FOC network. For more than 40 years, LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, the nation's largest community development financial institution, has been at the forefront of the community development sector, helping to create thriving communities of opportunity for the residents who call these places home. LISC launched our program office in Hartford in 1984, one of 38 across the country. Since that time, we've invested more than $94 million in communities across the state, helping to develop almost 5,000 units of affordable housing. Nationally and locally, we've been focusing on racial equity, and we've implemented programs to empower and enhance the capacity of our partners. Since the fall of 2020, LISC Connecticut has managed a network of 7 financial opportunity centers, which bring resources and services to underserved communities across the state. Over the next hour, you'll learn more about LISC's FOCs from Program Officer Raquasia Smith, and dive deeper into LISC's commitment to racial equity with Tiffany Taylor Minor, representing National LISC's Black and African American Affinity Group, LISC Connecticut's Esther Jean-Marie, who's our Development and Communications Officer, and Gabriel Emanuel, the FOC Manager at the Urban League of Greater Hartford. First up, we're going to hear from Program Officer Raquasia Smith to give us some background about FOCs and the work that we've been doing in Connecticut. Quay?
Perfect. Thanks, Jim. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm like super bubbly today for some reason. So my name is Raquasia Smith, and I'm the Community Economic Development Program Officer here at LISC Connecticut, and I'm super excited to see everybody this morning. For those of you who don't know, partially in response to COVID-19, LISC launched its Connecticut FOC network in fall 2020 across 10 sites. So Financial Opportunity Centers, or FOCs for short, are career and financial coaching service centers that provide a one-on-one employment and career counseling, one-on-one financial coaching and education, and income supports counseling that connects clients to benefits such as SNAP, utility assistance, and affordable health insurance. So FOCs differ in that services are delivered in an integrated way that result in concrete gains in net income and job retention and narrow racial wealth and opportunity gaps in disinvested communities. So as of December 31st, 2022, I'm super proud to announce that our FOC network has served a total of 3,438 clients, with 81% of those clients accessing multiple services, placing 467 people in jobs with an average hourly wage of $16.92. So a lot of great work being done by our FOC partners. As Jim had mentioned, our Connecticut FOC network is currently comprised of 7 sites, including Urban League of Greater Hartford, who we'll hear from later today, the Village for Families and Children in Hartford, Human Resources Agency of New Britain, Naugatuck Valley Community College in Waterbury, Community Action Agency of New Haven, Open Doors in Norwalk, and Person to Person, our newest site in Darien, who is actually serving Stanford residents. So exciting. FOCs also have the opportunity to transition to Bridges to Career Opportunity Centers, which are called BCOs. We love acronyms here. And essentially, they build upon the successful FOC model by helping chronically unemployed and underemployed adults train for, land, and advanced jobs in local growth industries. So clients will not only receive the 3 core services as provided by the FOC model, but they'll also have the opportunity to access trainings and other professional development opportunities. Open Doors in Norwalk is currently our only BCO in the network, and they help clients receive training and certifications as a certified nursing assistant or an insurance adjuster in the healthcare field. So overall, our FOC partners have done a fantastic job in serving the communities over the last few years, and their focus, or rather one of their focuses for this year, is to improve on employment and financial metrics such as job placement and retention, as well as clients increasing income, increasing net worth, and increasing credit score. A lot of our FOCs overall do a really good job in the amount of clients that they serve overall, as well as the bundling rate, which is just the clients accessing 2 or more services. But we really want to make sure that clients are achieving some of these other financial and employment metrics. And then sites will also be focusing on increasing their communication efforts for their sites to improve visibility and exploring additional funders to support the work. So what does all that have to do with today's theme? So today's theme is actually racial equity. And LISC has thought about, in the last year, how we can kind of embed racial equity into our work, and have had many discussions internally to determine what that would look like, not only for our FOCs and programming, but also for our local offices in general. So at this time, I will pass the mic on to Esther Jean-Marie to dive deeper into LISC Connecticut's commitment to racial equity. Esther?
Thank you, Koi. Good morning, everyone. As Koi mentioned, my name is Esther Jean-Marie. I am a program officer with LISC Connecticut, focusing on our development and communication work, and also lead the racial equity work for our office. So a little bit about me. I have I've done a lot of different things in my life, but at some point I did spend 5 years working in the racial equity space as a consultant / facilitator. So I work with municipalities, colleges, nonprofits, small businesses, and some of that work included embedding racial equity into their work, policies, procedures, also helping to navigate difficult conversation, creating equitable practices for board and community engagement, and I can go on and on. So coming into LISC Connecticut in 2021, it was just, LISC was already studying that work. So with having conversations with Jim, we kind of talked about how it would look like to dive even more into that and deepen the work for our office. So with that being said, over the past 3 years, LISC Connecticut specifically has been focusing on re-examining and intensifying our commitment to racial equity. We have, made the clear statement to say that, racial equity is a core value that encompasses who we are, what we do, and how we measure impact, who we partner with, and how we build trust and show up in the community. We know racial equity is important, altruistic, and component of our mission and vision and strategy. So we are committed to changing how we do business to truly reflect the priorities of Black and Brown residents to revitalize their communities. So for that means examining how racial equity impacts our policies, practice, procedures, and programs. Also deepening our community engagement with communities of color, and expanding our lending, grant making, and capacity building with BIPOC-led organizations and individuals. So what we've been doing specifically is, one of the ways in which we've been making racial equity a priority is every month we have a racial equity meeting, which usually is on a Tuesday. And we actually had one yesterday, and we this way, having a monthly racial equity meeting not only puts it on the forefront and keeps the conversation alive, but it also is a way to hold us accountable to doing the work. We also created a racial equity matrix last year to help evaluate our work. And every single year, all LISC offices have to create an annual work plan to kind of just outline the goals and objectives we plan to achieve for that year. And so one of the things we started doing is embedding racial equity into the center of our work plan, so that each goal that we set out to achieve for the year has a racial equity component, and is done through a racial equity lens as a way to make sure that we are, once again, holding ourselves accountable to doing the work. One of the conversations that we had yesterday at our meeting was about the importance, which is going to be the next step in the work, because we also formed an internal racial equity committee with some members of the staff to kind of help lead that work, and then present it to the rest of the team to have like longer and deeper conversations. So one of the things we talked about was creating a racial equity logic model as the next step in this work. A logic model would essentially help to explain our expected outcomes and how we expect those to occur as a result of our organization's strategies and activities. We've also have made racial equity also focus on our LAC in regarding to having those kind of important and difficult conversations, and why this is important to our work and what that would look like in all aspects of our work. And one of the things we just recently did as well is create a racial equity action plan. And this action plan, we committed to 4 overarching goals: one that is internal, one that is focused on our partners, one that is focused on our communication, and the last one is focused on our, oh my God, I'm just blanking. I literally just programs. Thank you, Jen. I'm like, it's early and my brain is still, I didn't have coffee this morning, so my apologies. And so the goal of the racial equity action plan is to help to advance racial equity into our vision, policies, and throughout every LISC Connecticut program. So each overarching goal has an objective, as well as listed tactics that we are either currently working on or plan to pursue in the near future. And so this is something we plan to revisit every year to make sure that we are once again holding ourselves accountable, doing the work. And if we need to shift or make any changes or reevaluate what we've done well and not done well, then we would change course in that way. In regards to our programming, so some of the things that we've been doing is to ensure technical assistance and community investments reach BIPOC-led organizations. We have established a 2-year BIPOC-led capacity building cohort, and the cohort is funded generously by JP Morgan and Chase. And so right now we have 7 members of different minority-led organizations from all over the state participating in the cohort. And other things that we've done is to increase our professional development opportunities in community development sector. We coordinate the Housing Community Development Leadership Institute, also known as the HCDLI. As Quay said, we love acronyms here. And our AmeriCorps program. Both programs are career development focused. HCDLI, one of the primary goals is to get women of color into the development sector. And then in our AmeriCorps program, one of the goals we've set out for ourselves is that we place not only that to work with minority-led organizations, but to also place people from the community, people of color, into those service opportunities as well. And another way we've been doing this work is we've also stepped up our advocacy and community engagement work. So over the last 3 years, our program officer, Debbie Martin, really has been leading this community engagement work and working with community based organizations and being, trying to engage more in the community and participating in NRZs and just having conversations with churches and grassroots organizations to increase our profile, but also to showcase our dedication to doing this work effectively. As Quay mentioned, we've been trying to embed this into all aspects of our work. So last year, the focus of the FOC's peer learning sessions was about embedding racial equity into their work. And so we work with a consultant to kind of help lead that work and work with the FOC sites to embed that into their the work that they were doing with the FOC clients. So these are just some of the few things that we've been doing and being intentional about over the last couple of years to embed racial equity into our work. And our goal is to have our essentially our action plan, our equity, race equity matrix, and now this theory of change or logic model kind of all work together to essentially continue us down this path of embedding racial equity into LISC Connecticut's mission and values, and to hold ourselves accountable in doing this work and boldly saying to our partners and to the community that this is something that we truly care about and value. So that is all from me. Does anyone, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. If not, then I will pass it on to our next speaker. So, any questions? Okay. And if something comes up, please feel free to write it in the chat and we can as well answer those later. So with that being said, I will now pass it on to Tiffany Taylor Minor, who is works for a LISC national office and a member of BAG, which she can explain more in detail about that. Tiffany?
Thank you so much. I have just a few slides and let me see if I can get them pulled up here quickly. And while I'm doing that, I will apologize to everybody. I'm fighting a little cold or something, so forgive my voice. Are those slides open for everybody? Perfect. Perfect. And thank you so much for the invitation to participate. Even though I wasn't feeling well, this was one call I was determined to make. It sounded like a really cool opportunity and one for which I shared with some other colleagues. I would be remiss by not starting with just a little backdrop about rural. I'm even sporting my garanimals. I'm not sure if you can see in the frame there before I get to the topic about affinity groups and BAG in particular. So a couple of fun facts. I have been with, I'm the director of communications for Rural LISC. I have been with the organization for just 2 years. So I still feel pretty green, but learning tons. So one of the things that I wasn't really aware of is, how do people define rural? In my mind, who doesn't know what rural means? But I have found that there are a lot of stereotypes and myths, right, about how rural looks. Turns out it's not just about cows and pastures. There's it is actually a great place to live and work and innovate, as we say. But a couple of fun facts is that the USDA actually defines rural as 50,000 communities of 50,000 people or less that are of a certain distance from metro areas with limited economic resources, right? Just to give some backdrop. And another piece is that actually 20% of our country's population is rural, right? So who knew? So those are always, those are my party factoids, right? I truck out. And as far as, and I'm hoping this is not cutting off the slide, I'll just move it a little bit. Excuse me. So our rural team really operates across 5 core pillars. And as you can see here, this cool graphic predates me, so I can't take credit for it. But they really we operate focused on broadband and infrastructure, workforce and small business, disaster solutions, housing, and really at its core, creative capital. Creative capital was its own pillar, but it also feeds the other pillars. And our foundation is really based on providing technical assistance and capacity building, some of the same things we heard earlier in this conversation. And we try to keep an eye towards diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice as we approach the work. Rural LISC has been around for over 25 years, and we're able to provide that technical assistance and capacity building and all of the support, working with over 150 different program partners in 49 states and Puerto Rico. And so we make a concerted effort to keep, if you ever are interested in our coverage area and that kind of thing, if you go to our website, there's an interactive map and you can kind of slice and dice, excuse me, all of those working areas. If you ever have that interest, I encourage you to take a look. And as I mentioned, we take a comprehensive, holistic approach to providing support across those 5 pillars. So this is just a graphic that kind of shows how each entity plugs into a community to really build value and build capacity in all of the areas that I mentioned. So let's talk about BAG and DEIJ a little bit more. So while not all organizations, large or small, have any kind of affinity group or employee resource group, I think it's a concept that is growing. I think there's a lot of pressure in organizations that to have some kind of programming or efforts available for employees to really connect with different groups. But it's not a new concept, right? This has been an effective approach in history, and it's really made it's been important to add value and make change in history. So it's not a new concept, but it is a growing one in corporate organizations. So here at LISC, these are the 5 real areas of purpose for affinity groups. They are meant to help colleagues connect and find some commonalities. They're meant to advance the initiatives around our organizational initiatives around diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. We strive, all of us, to continue to provide programming to educate colleagues and allies and to assist. And really and I want to talk about the last two in the next 2 slides, but it's really meant to push the envelope, right? And provide the business case for having these dedicated groups to provide information to further goals and decision-making and to influence perspectives. So it's not just check the box. There really are valuable perspectives that are changing the landscape for our organization. If those on the phone are not aware, there are actually 13 affinity groups here at LISC, and they run the gamut. Some of them are identity-based, and some of them are learning circles, right? So it's everything from the Black and African American affinity group to examining whiteness and an unlearning circle. We all are provided the same set of resources, so to speak. But as you might imagine, the size of each is a little different. The Black and African American affinity group is the largest. There are about 150 members here at LISC. And I am not ashamed to say that we, as we are trying to influence change, we use that power and those numbers and membership to help influence that change. As the lead for BAG, it's been really important to me to balance having some downtime, some ways for our Black and African American employees to decompress and get together and fellowship. But we do spend a lot of time focused on professional development activities and, as I say, diving into what's going to hopefully improve the landscape for our colleagues. One of the ways that we've done that, I guess this has been about 18 months ago, we put together a list of recommendations for the organizations, and they really kind of fell into a handful of categories. They included topics around compensation and how we wanted to have some more transparency around that. Data analytics, how is the organization approaching staffing? And is there some way that we can help with that and increasing our attractiveness to potential new hires? And of the Black and African American staff that are leaving, what are those, why are they leaving? How could we have been helpful in improving the environment? So taking a look at those data elements, we focused on benefits and education topics. So things like tuition reimbursement. Believe me, let me be on the record, right? I think we're recording. I am super happy to have tuition reimbursement as an offering in the organization. But it is not lost on me that reimbursement is still, it could be prohibitive for people to have to put forth money and then wait on reimbursement versus the organization having some kind of grant pool available. So really thinking through the lens of our Black and African American colleagues, and just culturally, are there some things that we can nuance to make improvements? We also focus in those recommendations on financial health, and we're right now working with our benefits team, our internal benefits team, and an outside consultant to put together programming about investing, right? So again, under this lens, we know that historically, topics that go out to one LISC about benefits, for example, they are not well attended. So we wanted to provide some content that was uniquely specific to, again, culturally attractive, and the topics that would be attractive to our Black and African American colleagues. The last couple of buckets in our recommendations were around training and learning and development, right? And so in that, career advancement. So when we talk about things like the mentoring program, the sponsorship program, I'm hoping that everybody on this call that is eligible is eager to participate. How can we market uniquely through the BAG lens? So those, we put together those recommendations and have been meeting regularly with our executive leaders and you've seen some of that. We have this sponsorship program coming up, right? That was part of the BAG and Comunidades recommendation list. Some other focus areas in terms of events, we do have member meetings. We focus really heavily our budget towards heritage events. So Black History Month, Women's History Month, Juneteenth, which is coming up. And again, those who are available, I think you'll be excited to see some of the events that are coming out of that. And you see on this slide, excuse me, it says lowest attendance 19, highest 155, right? So I left that in because I wanted to focus on that lowest number. Not only are we providing these history and heritage and those professional development events, after, regrettably, these killings keep happening within our communities, we have secured a professional facilitator, a psychologist, to come in, and we've held, I want to call them listening sessions, but really we could just sit in quiet at some points, but just to be together and have some space to take in and to deal with, and to even, how do you show up at work after yet another killing has affected our communities? So we have provided those spaces as well. And I'm really proud about, as we evaluate, excuse me, participants, that people have been, really happy with the mixture of content. And I think that's, when we're talking about equity and how to engage, I think that this is one way that we're finding success. The more engaged employees are, the more activities that they know they can plug into, or, you can make a connection. Maybe you want to get to pivot in your career, making connections in that way. BAG has, I'm really proud about the work coming out of our leadership team as well for that. I have not been paying attention to the time, but I assume somebody would have been giving me one of these or these if I was running over, but I did want to leave a little space for any questions about BAG, or ways to plug in, or certainly about rural. I'm biased about that as well.
So I do have a couple of questions here that got sent to me. So what impact do you think the affinity groups in general have had on employees at LISC?
So not so anecdotally, we hear not just in doing evaluations, but we have a very vocal group of colleagues, right? And I've heard directly from those who, whether it was, I just really needed a space after Buffalo, right? And I didn't know how to get up and go to, to really be an added value at work. I needed to decompress, and thank you for having that space. To folks who are looking to, grow in their careers, or even with the HBCU internship initiative, right? Being able to play a part in that and work really closely to help those folks get placed has been truly important and rewarding.
That's awesome. And then I just got one more question. What advice do you have for people who are looking to be more intentional with putting racial equity and /or DEIJ at the forefront of their work?
Yeah, so I would start by saying just to get involved, whether it's here at LISC or somewhere else in the community, to plug in and to find ourselves in position to listen and to collaborate. I think the biggest wins, as I reflect back, working with our executive leadership, is when they see us collaborating, right? And so I think that's huge, and it really fosters your seat at the table, right? If people can see that you're willing to put the time in and that you're connected internally and externally, I think that makes a big difference, just to be visible, right? And so to take advantage of all of the professional development opportunities, whether they're within an affinity group or provided to one LISC in general. And I would say, at Rural, we had, gosh, this is actually on my my list for review. We had a listening session with Black-led or founded program partner organizations, and how can we, our team, do a better job in engaging? Are there ways in which are resources that we aren't providing right now, right? And so that's a direct example about let's listen. And then, how can we collaborate and, with very limited resources in terms of, I know that everybody on here that's a LISC person, we work really hard and people grind really hard all the time, every day. So it's not that anybody is twiddling their thumbs looking for another project, but to be able to, cross-pollinate and be able to be responsive. And that's something, again, that it's important to our team, and it's actually in my written area for review. So I want to make sure to be responsive in that way as well. So those would be like my initial ways that I would say to be able to elevate our work in DEIJ, getting at the table constantly, improving ourselves and being able to be visible to those that we need to influence. Yeah, I appreciate it. If that was your last question, unless there was somebody else, I just want to thank LISC Connecticut again for inviting me to come in. And again, I apologize for not being at 100%, but I am absolutely here if anybody has questions afterwards.
Perfect. Just one last question. How does the work that BAG is doing impact the community? So I'll give you one example. Again, after some of these tragedies coming out of, innumerable communities, we started the conversation about how can we provide funds or grants or be supportive
immediately in the wake of some of these tragedies. And, talk about collaboration and finding support among colleagues. Of all other 12 affinity groups were interested in that concept. Unfortunately, it feels like there's some kind of tragedy every week at this point. So we need to come back to the drawing board for that kind of support. But it is really an example of how we are nimble enough that when something happens to be creative, and we have some, a ton of support from leadership to, think outside of the box. And I think that now that we have a executive that's over people and culture, that is, worked in this space for a long time, I think that we will have even more traction as we try to develop those ideas in terms of being responsive within the community right away, right?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Gabrielle Emanuel, the FOC manager at Urban League of Greater Hartford. Gabby, take it away.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to pull up my screen here. Can everyone see? All right.
Yep.
So yeah, my name, as Raquel said, is Gabrielle Emanuel. I work with the Urban League of Greater Hartford, and I'm going to be talking to you more about our Financial Opportunity Center and our diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice goals for this year. So I'm going to first start off with a little bit more about us, who we are as a league, and then I'll talk about our Financial Opportunity Center, give you more about our DEIJ goals, and then have any time for questions if you have any. So about us, the Urban League of Greater Hartford was founded in 1964. We're actually a smaller affiliate of like a national urban league that's located in New York City. And our mission is to promote racial equity through economic empowerment. And so we do this through 5 pillars, right? Our first one is education, where we have like GED programming, so our clients can be assisted with obtaining their high school diploma. And then we also have our Project Ready programming that helps teens, high school students get ready for college, work, and life after high school. We also have our workforce department that helps clients with employment searching. We do resume building, like critiquing and editing. We also have workshops that are focused on like workplace etiquette, time management, social emotional learning, and then different like sets of life skills to help the clients thrive in the workplace and like in their communities. We also offer like a men's student closet for anyone like in their employment search or career search that may need like workplace attire. We offer them like a free suit. And then we also have our housing pillar, right? And so that is really focused around housing stability. We focus primarily on foreclosure and eviction prevention, and we do that through Unite CT programming and then My Home CT programming as well. We also have a first-time homebuyers course that helps people buy their first home, right? And within all of that housing, we have like a component of financial counseling as well. And then we also have our health department, which is more like community health, where we have a Healthy Start program for new moms or like expecting mothers. We actually recently had a community baby shower where we provided like diaper bags with diapers, wipes, things for first-time moms. Yeah, and then we also are expanding our case management, which does include MSW interns that kind of help on the like mental health, more clinical side of things to help our clients really become like fuller and like thrive better in their communities, right? And be like mentally sound. And so within all of that, we keep like the justice component of it all, like through racial equity, making sure that Black and Brown students have quality access to like higher education or trainings after high school. Also like racial equity within the workforce in terms of hiring and retention, and like DEI goals and initiatives within corporate spaces or like our employers or partners. And yeah, and then it just ties back into our own efforts within our organization and also within like the community. All right, so here's our team. We have Ms. Lois, who's our senior manager. Myself, I'm the Community Resource and Financial Opportunity Center Manager. It's a long name. I know like Liz is good at acronyms. I might need an acronym for that. And then we have Timothy Freelon, who's the Workforce Manager. Desiree Tyson is our new financial counselor. And then we have Dejan Milner and Tony Nelson, who focus on recruitment and retention for our clients. We have our LISC AmeriCorps intern, Marcus Jones, who helps with everything in our Financial Opportunity Center. He helps from like calls to outreach to facilitating and workshops as well. And then we have our MSW interns. So that's a picture of one of them, Scotia. She's one of our interns as well. We predominantly get interns from University of St. Joseph's because they're more on a clinical track and kind of help us in terms of wraparound mental health services, but we do accept other interns as well from like UConn or CTSU, anywhere else. So to give you a background of our Financial Opportunity Center. So historically, Black, Indigenous, people of color have been marginalized, right? And into like lower income households or like communities. And Urban League has always uniquely identified the barriers that can cause othering and marginalization. So prior to our Financial Opportunity Center opening, we have a program called Project Stable, right? That assists clients in becoming economically empowered. We work with asset limited, income restrained households to provide one-to-one financial counseling, workshops, as well as employment services to help clients become empowered, right, in their lives, their workplace and community. And we do this in a number of ways, right, through our Financial Opportunity Center, right? So out of Project Stable, we were able to get great funding for our Financial Opportunity Center, right? And that helps kind of expand our services to like income supports, DSS services, financial services. So continuing our one-to-one like financial counseling, our employment services, and then also asset building, right? So one of the things we really want to make sure and ties into racial equity and like economic empowerment is that BIPOC communities are able to asset build and build wealth so that they can become like active, engaged members of society and hold positions of power as well, right? So to focus more on our own specific like DEI goals. So one of them are goal number one, I'll focus on three, but one of our goals is to provide diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice counseling to our corporate partners. So in the past, we've provided our corporate partners DEI expertise from our own lived experiences, right? But also our strategic objectives and our mission for like racial equity and through like economic empowerment, right? So we want to work with in the past we have worked with, but we want to be more intentional, like going forward, working with our corporate partners in terms of like meeting with their employee resource groups or even their like environment, social justice, and government groups to talk about ways in which they impact the communities that they're in. And then also to help them strategize and be more intentional with their own strategic initiatives in terms of their diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. Another goal that plays into like working with our corporate partners and like employers would be to advocate for equitable recruitment, hiring, retention, development, and promotion of like Black and Brown employees. We want to advocate for our corporate partners and like employers to hire like in terms of equitably hiring and like including people in the hiring process, and as well as retention, right? So as we work with corporate partners and employees, we really want to make sure that their DEI goals are creating safe spaces for Black and Brown employers, right? Employees, so that they feel safe to train, get like specific credentials to be like upwardly mobile in their companies, right? And be in positions of promotion. And then also on like the back end, we help like BIPOC communities develop their professional skills so that they can acquire higher paying jobs and become economically empowered, right? And then our last goal, to add on to like goal 2, we also really want to advocate for pay equity. So hopefully everyone's familiar that like Black women make about 64 cents to their white non-Hispanic like male counterparts. And so we want to make sure that we're advocating for pay equity so people are getting paid like what they're owed or what they're worth, what their skills are for. And then also goal number 3 would be to ensure that our programming is accessible and inclusive to all clients, right? So in our intake process, we identify if clients need special accommodations. We try to make sure that we can allow clients to be fully engaged in our programming, regardless of like health status, mental health status, certain ability levels. And then we also, with the expansion of our case management, really want to include our client's voice in their action plans and in their planning process for their life, whether that be employment or like gaining different skills, buying a home. A lot of the times, Black and Brown voices are lost, right, in systems because we may not hold power or be economically like in a space to have our voices be heard. And so we want to make sure that when we're dealing with our clients through workshops, programming, one-to-one counseling, we're allowing them to be like experts in their own lives, right? And let us know what they're thinking, like how they want to plan out their life so that they can feel empowered to have agency outside within their workplace, or like even in like legislative fields, like trying to lobby for certain things to be passed in their communities. So yeah, so now I have time for any questions if anyone has any questions.
There's just one that was sent. So in what ways does Urban League plan on monitoring or evaluating the progress of these goals?
All right, so I can start with that question. I think there are other urban leaguers in this call that can help, but so ways in which we try to evaluate and kind of record would be through data input, following up with corporate partners or employers when we hold trainings, kind of making sure that they're staying intentional in what their goals are. And then for us, staying intentional, talking with our clients, following up with clients and anyone in our programming, and outside of our programming in terms of community partners, give feedback, right? And provide data if we're able to collaborate in terms of data for like corporate partners or like employers in terms of their DEI goals and how they're staying intentional. Those are ways in which we try to track it.
I don't see any more questions in the chat. Are there any other questions, comments, thoughts? Don't all speak at once.
Yeah.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Gabby said just a little bit. In our delivery of the services, we also work with the client to help the client create an action plan. And this is in response to that, the one question that you had, so that the client goals tie into the program goals. And the action plan gives the counselor or coach and the client a partnership where they have certain tasks and action steps and timeline to achieve those things. And it kind of helps us get through the program, helps us get the client through the program. And then those are measurable outcomes to be able to provide to the funders.
Perfect. Thanks, Lois. Are there any questions or additions?
All right, well, thank you so much for allowing me to present on our stuff. And then here are ways you can connect with us. My email, you can find us on most social media at ULGH64 and then our main line.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Gabby. So if there are no other questions, thank you so much to our speakers, Esther, Tiffany, and Gabrielle, for leading us in this conversation about racial equity. Thank you so much to all of our FOC partners and staff for their hard and effective work over the last few years. And thank you to our office manager and assistant program officer, Angela Berry, for coordinating the registration and our Zoom meeting. LISC Connecticut would also like to thank all of our funders for supporting this work. including Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, Donor Advised Funds, Wells Fargo, Capital One, United Way of Greater Waterbury, American Savings Foundation, I'm an anonymous donor, United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut, Lincoln Financial Foundation, Fairfield County's Community Foundation, Connecticut Community Foundation, Community Foundation of Greater New Britain, Bank of America Charitable Foundation, Citizens, Webster Bank, and Flagstar Bank, formerly known as Signature. We'd also like to thank our local advisory committee and Community Economic Development Chair, Peter Mossbacker, and the CED, or rather Community Economic Development Subcommittee, for their contributions and leadership. Sorry about the acronyms in advance. In addition, we are always looking to find new funders to support our financial opportunity centers as we look to sustain the services provided by our partners. So please, if anyone is interested in becoming a supporter or has additional questions about the FOC network, please feel free to contact me afterwards or give out my contact information to anyone who couldn't join us today. I'd also like to thank and welcome our newest assistant program officer for FOCs, Karan Green, who did amazing work in coordinating the FOC at Community Action Agency of New Haven. So welcome, Karan. And thank you everyone for your participation. Have a great rest of your week and happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thanks everyone for
Bye,
joining
everyone.
us. Take care.